I'm pretty sure that I've never met Al. I don't think I met Al. I don't think I did. But I know that when I was 16, I think I submitted my first writing to Contrast, and he published it. You know, so I'm pretty proud of that. So we got some connection here. So once again, put your hands together. We're going to invite Mr. James to the stage, and he will talk to you a little bit about Mr. Hamilton. Thank
you. Good night, everybody. Good night. I think I know about half of you. The rest I don't know, but Al Hamilton is what brings us together. And we just finished talking about the Rasta man, and now we're going to talk about the bald head man, right? So, when I heard about the possibility of this night, I was pretty much excited because over the years, this man, Al Hamilton, really has not been given his due. He's had a huge impact on this community, huge impact on my life, and I think what we're doing here tonight is a real start towards making amends for that. I have a paper in my hand. It says, "Contrast is back." And yeah, you were hoping, right? It does not say 2012, unfortunately. It says July 13, 2005. And I remember when this came out, and some of my colleagues and friends, when they saw this, they're saying, well, what is Contrast? What do you mean it's back? I didn't know it was here before. And that showed you how short our memories are. A lady who lived just around the corner, Jane Jacobs, who some of you have heard about. Yeah, she wrote a book called Dark Age Ahead. And the whole premise of that is we have very short memories. And if we don't record and keep telling those stories, we tend to forget them. And so we could easily forget about Al Hamilton. I'm hoping that after tonight we will do something that will keep the memory alive. And we have a whole bunch of people here who can certainly affect that. I want to thank Norman Otis Richmond, and Jojo Chinto for really thinking about this idea. And they're going to tell you a little bit more about what they're hoping to accomplish out of tonight. Speaking of Bob Marley, you know, in my years at Contrast, and whoever comes up here to speak, you should tell us the years that you served at Contrast. I got there in 1978, 79, and never really left in my heart, but I think I stopped writing in the 80s sometime, 83, 84, 85. One of the front pages that I still remember was actually during the Bob Marley front page when he died. I can still see the big picture on page 1, Robert Nesta Marley, and the years from birth to death. And this newspaper was what recorded our history and put it in print. It's to our shame, I guess, that we don't preserve these things, and you know, like in a place like this, we should have replicas of those iconic front pages from Contrast, and in all our institutions across the city. And I'm hoping that this will be the start of us to really start recognizing this man. Now, in this paper, Horace Gooden was the editor. Somebody told me that he's here.
He's here. He's actually back. He's here.
Oh, wow, Mr. Gooden, great to see you, sir. Thank you very much. All right. Good. Yeah, pretty young, good-looking guy here on the cover, Horace Gooden. to try to keep this thing alive. And just before him, we'll hear from you. We'll give you the microphone. Yeah, we will. We'll give you a chance to speak. And just before Mr. Gooden was Denham Jolly, who was the publisher, and before him, of course, was Al Hamilton. So we're hoping that those of you who have stories to tell and you want to share with us, you'll be able to come to the microphone and share your stories tonight. And we have some people who have already indicated that they want to speak, so we'll probably start with them first and then go through the rest of you. I'm sure all of you have stories to tell, so if we keep the story short, and we can get to everybody. If you're not short, then I'll come up right beside you and then move you along. Okay? All right. So let's start with Otis. Otis, why don't you come up here and tell us a little bit about the dream that you have. And I'll stay close to Otis too, so in case he goes too long, I'll just move him along too.
Yeah, good luck with that.
How's everybody feeling? I wanted to go back to 1969. In 1969, the first issue of Contrast came out in 1969, February 1969, and it dealt with explosion at Sir George Williams. That was in Montreal. In 1969. February 1969, I was living in Detroit, and I was in an organization called the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, and we were putting out a newspaper called the Inner City Voice, and I wrote a story about the Sir George Williams in 1969. So in 1969, Al Prentice, Bunchy Carter, and John Huggins, who were leaders of the Black Panther Party in Los Angeles, were killed in 1969, January 17, 1969. On December 4th, 1969, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were killed in Chicago. And Al Hamilton was on the cutting edge of that. First of all, Contrast was about social justice. Yes. Al Hamilton was we're talking about 1969. This is in the midst of the whole Black Power movement. Al Hamilton was about social justice, and he was very much about African liberation. And I started writing for Al in 1972. The first article I wrote for Al was on Gil Scott-Heron. It was on Gil Scott-Heron, and I didn't get paid for it. Daryl Hawaii was the editor at that particular time. He and Arnold August. He brought the art, or he had me write the article. Subsequently, there was Brownie Armstrong started a paper called The Islander, and I think JoJo was there, JoJo Chinto. This is JoJo's idea, and really the man who spearheaded this thing is Pat McNeely. There was a party at Ida Sadu and Miguel's house, and basically Judy Brooks basically dared us. You guys talk all that talk, so do something. So Pat said, let's get together and do it. JoJo and Royston said we would do it. But anyway, back to 1972. In 1972, I wrote this article, and then I came back to Contrast, and Al began to pay me. Now, Al didn't have a lot of money, but I don't want to go into that. Al did not have a lot of money. Al Hamilton was not. JoJo can testify to that. But in fact, he told me that. African Liberation Day 1972, we put together a publication, and I think it was Harold Hoyt who went on to do the Nation in Barbados. Olivia Grange Walker, this man's sister, she was a minister of sports and culture in Babsy Grange. She started the paper with Al Hamilton. So in 1972, we had African Liberation Day, and at that time, I was an illegal immigrant. I don't know if anybody knew it, but I was.
Well, we all knew.
Yeah, yeah. I was illegal.
Suspected.
Yeah. So we put together a copy of
illegal.
Contrast. Al Hamilton let us put together. People used to come through Contrast. Maurice Bishop would come through. Darrell White told me that Ron Carter, who played bass with Miles Davis, he had a subscription to Contrast. I never knew that. But anyway, we put this issue of Contrast out in 1972, and we had a demonstration here in Toronto. Who was it here? Angela Davis' sister, Fania, Rap Brown's brother, Ed Brown, who just passed away about a month ago. In New York, Washington, D.C., we had a demonstration. I think Walter Rodney, Elaine Brown. San Francisco, there was a demonstration. Kingston, Jamaica. Port of Spain, Trinidad. Maurice Bishop led the one in Grenada. We had something in Guyana with UC Guyana and people like that. And Contrast went all over the Western Hemisphere that particular day, 1972. And we had articles in there by Rosie Douglas, Horace Campbell. I think I used the name A.C. Mumi or something. I was fascinated by this guy Felix Mumi in the Cameroon, so I took his name, and A.C. was Amilcar Cabral. I had all of these particular names. Maxwell Stanford, a.k.a. Muhammad Ahmed, he wrote some articles in because at that particular time we were doing the political thing. Like I say, I was
Illegal.
I was definitely an illegal immigrant.
Still illegal.
And I am going to basically let the other people take the microphone. All I wanted to say is that it was through Al Hamilton and through Contrast that allowed me to go to the United Nations and represent this country as the around the cultural boycott of South Africa. It was Contrast that allowed me to interview Stevie Wonder for the Toronto. Stevie Wonder was opening up for Gil Scott-Heron. Bob Marley had just passed away, or was sick at that particular time, and he chose Gil Scott-Heron to fill in for him. So I got a trip to go to Montreal to cover this particular event, and they asked me, there was a brother named Stephen, I think he was from Sierra Leone. He asked me 2 questions. He said, do you write for the white newspaper, the daily newspaper? I said, yes. Do you write for the black newspaper, the weekly newspaper? I said, yes. He says, you're the man who we want to do it, because they wanted someone that could cover both bases. You wanted to give the black community their due, but at the same time you wanted the whole crossover appeal, so they picked me. Contrast, Al Hamilton and Contrast made that possible. And Contrast, we basically, I wanted to say, myself and Jojo Chinto, about 3 years ago, we started talking about, there's nothing about Al Hamilton on WikiLeaks. Wikipedia, pardon, not WikiLeaks. There was some stuff that probably could go on Wikipedia.
But we don't want to talk about that.
No. I am going to basically behave myself today. So I just wanted to say that we wanted to get Al Hamilton, the Wikipedia. We wanted to get black Canadians, African Canadian history, because it's wide open. And all we have to do is write it and put it up there. There's absolutely nothing about us. And we also wanted to pair with some people with a scholarship fund for Al Hamilton. And I know there are a lot of people that can tell stories. I'm going to sit down and let, well, I'm not even seeing, so I'm going to give it back to Royce. Wait, last thing. Me and Al used to have these big, we'd have these fights, and I left. And the only reason I came back to Contrast was because this man.
Norman Otis Richmond. Great times, great times. Diane Liverpool, we're going to call on you to come up next. She since we used to work together in contrast, but she still stands tall, doesn't she? All right, come on down.
Good evening. Good evening. I'll start with a poem. 28 Lenox Street. What was black and white and red all over? It came from 28 Lenox Street. What made politicians quake and police sit up in their seat? It came from 28 Lenox Street. What launched many a journalistic career and was the ears, eyes, and voice of the black community without any fear? It came from 28 Lenox Street. What did we need then to face the challenges we still meet? Contrast. It came from 28 Lenox Street. Okay, my personal story. I worked as a reporter, photographer, and receptionist at Contrast from 1979 to 1981. So don't guess my age, you can figure it out. One of my editors was Royson James, now the City Hall columnist at the Toronto Star. He was a very good editor. I'm not saying that because he's sitting beside me. Fine to say that anyway. Okay, Al Hamilton was publisher at the time. He was always on top of his situation, and he demanded accuracy and honesty in all stories, and he was quick to catch mistakes. Remember, there was a mistake in a Masco beauty supply ad, and the presses were stopped, the ad corrected, and the paper was laid out again.
Yes.
It was the old days of paste and set layout regarding typesetting, those old days. People used typewriters to type stories and pose the process in the darkroom. And memorable stories I covered was the court trial of the police officers who had killed Albert Johnson. He was killed in 1979 and the court trial was 1980. And the Atlanta mothers of the missing black boys that came up to Toronto. Remember that was happening in 1980, the black boys in Atlanta, some were getting murdered mysteriously. And also the continuation of the National Black Coalition meeting in Windsor, because they had a meeting here and it was a problem, so they had to continue it in Windsor. So he sent me to Windsor to cover the story. But that group is now defunct, the National Black Coalition of Canada. And interesting interviews, Bunny Ruggs and Cat Core from Third World, Robert Kubel from Cool and the Gang, Tina Turner, local artists including Claudia Barry, who's now in Europe, and Truth and Rights, and local politicians, Ann Cool, when she was running in Rosedale, and the late Lloyd Perry, and the late Nova Scotian civil rights activist Carrie Best. I got the interview.
Wow.
Al Hamilton lives.
I will never die. Man, I started in '79. Hamlin Grange hired me. She was the editor then.
Best thing ever did.
Best thing ever did. My first story was the Buddy Evans inquest. You guys remember Buddy Evans? And I mean, I didn't know anything about an inquest. You know, barely knew the term. And every day I would be down there at Grosvenor Street, sitting right here. The Toronto Star reporter was Carola Vinak, I remember. She was sitting right there, and I could see my stories and compare that to hers and see how they played it as opposed to we played it in the black community. It was a great learning experience for me. Everything I did at Contrast was a learning experience for me, and I always think wherever I am today, Contrast was the one that launched it. Hamlin Grange, you hired me. Thank you. You want to come up here and say a few words?
There we go. That's a lot. That's still surprising.
Good intro.
Well, you know, thanks, Royson. Yeah, it's the best thing I ever did was hiring you. I came to Contrast. I mean, someone said that their first job at Contrast was I think, was it Fred says about 15 years old. I was a little bit older, maybe not much older. I remember because my sister was involved in Contrast when it first started, and I could never get a job. So I remember one day I walked over to Contrast, and I I went to Central Tech across the street, and so I said to Al, I like to write. I want to work for the paper. And he says, well, what can you do? You know, and just pipe it. And I said, well, I take pictures. He says, okay, here's what you do. You're going to get man about town. That's your job. So my job was man about town. So I went out, but do you have a camera? I said, sure, I got a camera. I lied. So I went and bought a camera. It was a plastic camera, and it was a Russian-made camera. Really, made in Russia, made of plastic. I think I blew like $15 on it. I mean, that's a lot of money for me. And bought it just around the corner on Bloor Street. And it's one of those, you look down into the center like that. It wasn't a single reflex. And my job was going around asking people ridiculous questions and taking their picture. And then putting it up in the paper. And there's a column, Man About Town. And I took people's pictures, wrote their names, you know, asked them questions. And I went into the darkroom. I developed it, I printed it, I did everything except sell the paper on the street. And that's how I got my job at Contrast. Fast forward, I went to university, came back to Toronto, graduated university with a journalism degree, and Al offered me this job to be managing editor of the paper. And I thought, I made the big time. This is it. Little did I know what I was going to get was all the byline I could eat. He paid me, but just as well as he paid all you guys. But the experience, the learning, to be reintroduced to my community, because after I went away to the States for 4.5 years or so, you lose touch, and this city had changed a lot. So I came back not too long after Buddy Evans got killed. And at the time, this city was going through turmoil. And Contrast was the place where people turned to, okay? I used to tease and say that Contrast, you used to say that Contrast was the ears, the voice, you know, and the eyes of the community. I just say it was a nose, throat, ear, nose, and throat of the community. That's what Contrast was about, okay? Contrast talked about the undiscussables. Contrast was brave, it was bold, it was fearless. And Contrast in many ways was a reflection of Al Hamilton, okay? Spunky, fearless, didn't give a rat's ass about anybody, except telling the truth about what was going on in our community and how our community was affected. And we had our issues. You know, we had some knockdown, drag-out fights, real big arguments, you know, about editorial control. These two snotty-ass, fresh guys out of journalism trying to make the newspaper credible. And Al's saying that the hell with that. Cops are kicking the shit out of people. We got to say, yeah, but it's got to be balanced, Al. It's got to be balanced. The hell with balance. You know, so there was some issues. We had issues. But at the end of the day, I think Contrast was that newspaper that people could not ignore. Yes. You could not ignore Contrast. Whether you either you loved it or you hated it, but you couldn't ignore it. And you know, and I'll end by just reminding all of us. You know, some of you went through this when the paper went to bed on Thursday. Is it Thursday or is it Wednesday?
Wednesday.
It was all a blur. I mean, it was Wednesday, went into Thursday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, but sort of
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning. Yeah, but I mean, we would start laying that paper out at around 3 o'clock, 3:30.
After.
Yeah.
After we printed
the pictures,
write the stories,
edited all that stuff. And we would just keep going till 6 o'clock the next morning, okay? And then I'd drive his sorry ass home because he wasn't driving at the time. And I'd fall asleep on the way home, and that was called dedication. And then you come out and find a ticket on your car because the cops would come by and ticket us while we're in the driveway. And the next stop I had to do the next day was go down to 14th Division or 13th Division with the ticket to the desk and say, look, they gave me another ticket. It says, okay, fine, they'll cancel it. It was a game. They played the game, we played the game. We won more than we lost, to be honest with you. Okay, and I want to thank every one of you for everything you did for Contrast.
28 pounds, I tell you. Bromley Armstrong, Wilson Head, Al Mercury, Dan Hill, those were the guys who gave me my first interviews. I would call them, I could mess up, ask stupid questions, they would help me through, and really, they laid the groundwork. Now I look at the kids on television, I look at the kids who are the few that we have in newspapers across the country, and I think they think that the reason they're on television and stuff is because they're good. And before them, people weren't good. Well, I can tell you a lot of great journalists never got a chance.
Never got a chance.
Right? Never got a chance. And I know Al Hamilton, Al Mercury, Wilson Head, Bromley Armstrong, I remember many times in the second floor office with Al, plotting strategies so that they could then go down to Simpsons. You guys remember Simpsons? Eaton, the Bay, to advocate that they put black models in their catalog. Right? And they would go to the Star, the Sun, and the Globe and say, don't we have black kids who can write? How come you have none on your publication? And because of their advocacy, people like Hamlin and myself are here. All right? Okay, so who else would like to come up? Tiki? Yeah, where are you? And this Phyllis Walker, my goodness. I remember your typewritten stuff. You send your columns in, we had to edit it. Great. Where's Tiki? Are you coming?
She's saying how to go first.
Okay, good. All right. Columnist. Columnist Phyllis Walker, columnist Patrick Hunter. Any other columnists out there?
Kenny Robinson has to speak.
All right.
It kind of amuses me that I have, as I look back over the years as to how I've changed, because when Albert Johnson was murdered, I used the word, I don't know if I've ever been as mad as I was then. I remember the march, and I read all the newspapers at the time, and when the case was in court, the forensic expert said, and Albert Johnson, for those of you who don't know, was a big man, 6 feet something, that the gun had to be above the person's head for the passage through his body. Because the 9-year-old child, Cozy, had said the policeman told her father to kneel, and then he shot him. I never ever forgot that thing. That was the loss of innocence, we could call it then. I wrote a column on hair, because along with my husband we had a salon, Brahms Coiffures. And it's kind of amusing to see I've cut it all off now. Gone are the days of straightening and braiding and on. This whole plethora of work that, as black women do, to keep our hair for us to be acceptable in the workplace. And I wrote on Facebook the other day, I said, the blue-eyed people, as I always phrase it, has done a good job screwing up our minds about what is beautiful with our hair. So ladies, I ask you, please do not pay any attention to this man who has said that Michelle Obama, our beautiful First Lady, she is not really doing the job she said she would do to help with health, because look at her bottom. Never have I ever heard any woman in power or in the position like that. Some counselor from Wisconsin, I think. So I said, please don't start getting upset about your beautiful bottoms, because the other people are busy making false ones to wear. Last week at storytelling, because some of you know I do storytelling, I said to the audience, I said, is this man so stupid that he has lived in America for all these years and he doesn't realize that black people have different bodies?
Hello.
Our beautiful voluptuous frame It's a problem to him and that horror, what's his name on CNN? They just got rid of him. I mean, I don't watch CNN, it's just that every now and again, as a fan of that terrible man at 12 o'clock. What's his name again? Who? No. He comes over, John Stewart.
Oh, John.
John will do a little moment from some crazy person on CNN. So Al really taught me, because when I came into Canada, I was very busy studying the Jewish problem till I realized there was a black problem.
I get it.
Well, you gotta study these things, because I had a Jewish doctor and somebody says to me, you better watch these Jewish people. So I'm thinking, what's wrong with them? They look all right to me. And then I got a Jewish accountant and somebody said, you better watch these people. So I went down the street to this little Jewish old man who was sitting outside. I said to him, what's the problem with Jewish people? Is there a problem between them and Germans? Got two Germans. I said, he says, oi, Miss Phyllis.
Or they.
There we were, naive people full of love. But Al certainly straightened us all out. If we didn't know about racism, we soon found out about it. So I thank him for that, because I think I did my column for about 2 years. And I was paid, everybody. Al, we think of you and we'll always remember you with great fondness. Thank you.
My recollections of Al, I think, is going to be a little bit different. I first started working for Contrast. I was very young, actually. I guess a lot of us were. I think I was about 16 the first time he published an article, and I really have tried to remember how that came about, and I don't remember. Al Hamilton had been friends with my family, so I had seen him, quite a bit around the community, and had been acquainted with him, but more like he was Uncle Al, right? I had probably gone to him, I'm assuming that's what happened somewhere along the line. I want to put this within sort of a historical context. When I was in grade 8, and we used to have appointments with our guidance teachers. I don't know if they still do that or not. Yes? Okay. And they'd ask the question, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that will determine what high school you go to. So I said at Queen Alexandra Senior Public School, I want to be a writer. Now, at the time, I was actually being paid to lecture in Black history under the Library of Black People's Heritage. This is when I was in grade 8. It was a library that was run by Jean Daniels. Some of you remember her.
Yep.
And so I think I had a few things to say. I had to be vetted by her. She actually tested me to make sure I knew a certain amount of information. And I was very fortunate in having had a grandfather who was a scholar who trained me in a lot of things and got me started very early so that I was able at that age to be able to do that. But when I was in with my guidance teacher, he asked, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a writer. And he looked at me and then he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a writer. And he just burst into laughter. I mean, the man almost fell off his chair. He said, there are no Negro writers. And I looked at him and I said, but I have books at home by James Baldwin and Richard Wright and Leron Bennett Jr. and Zora Neale Hurston. I said, I never heard of those people, right? You people make really good hairdressers, so I'm going to send you to Danforth Tech. Now, that story, I mean, it has a lot of connections and it goes on from there. I just wanted to give you sort of the social context that Contrast came around. So, when I was actually able to write for Contrast, this was something that was particularly thrilling for me. I don't really have a lot of specific stories because it was a lot of a blur at the time. Not, for me, not the same reasons though. It was a transitional time for me. I was in the process and then had left home very early. I was trying to support myself. I was, you know, things were very confused, and I was perceived, well, not I was perceived, I was quite militant and I wasn't really popular, and Al Hamilton, for me, was quite instrumental in helping to ground me. He was an adult who also was outspoken and who inspired me to continue to speak truth to power. He also seemed to understand that I needed somewhat of a grounding influence that men can have in a young woman's life. And I want to mention that because we do often talk about the importance of men in young boys' lives, but we don't talk about the fact that it's also crucial for young girls to have a proper, healthy relationship with an older man who can be that father figure. And it was very important for me, simply because of my family background. And some of the men who should have been doing that in my family were so conservative, I think I scared them in some of my militancy. And then I later realized too that a couple of them were actually jealous that I was writing for this newspaper and that I was still just a kid. They didn't like that. So I wasn't getting encouragement there, I was getting active discouragement. So Al was a source of encouragement, he was a source of strength, and a source of my learning as well, because he was one of the many figures who I admired very much, but who I also, as you grow and you mature as a human being, you learn some of them, just the little, not simply quirks, but you learn the complexities of human beings. That you could have this man who's and it wasn't just him, there are other people I came to learn the same way. You can have people who are very strong and really positive and upstanding in one aspect in their life, but they can be a little weak in something else, right? And in particular, when you have activists, I think this is something that is really a challenge for all activists, is trying to keep that balance between what you're doing for the community and then also your domestic responsibilities and things as well. It's a very, very difficult teeter-totter. Yeah, it really, really is, and something that very few do really well in all areas of their life. So even learning about that sort of thing was very instructive for me, right? But he will always hold a very special place in my heart. I loved his outspokenness. I really didn't care about that balance thing that you kept talking about either. I just wanted him to just tell it like it is, right? So I kind of like that. So those are my recollections.
So who else want to come up? Put your hand up, and we'll get you up here. Patrick Hunter, of course. Great, come on up, Patrick. We had hellacious fights with the Trane Sun. Remember Hamlet? Oh, Peter Worthington, and Barbara Emile, and Mackenzie Porter, and another guy named McDonald, I think. Yeah. Oh, my. And Downey. Look, Doris Zink.
Mackenzie Porter. Yeah, that's all.
My name is Patrick Hunter. I don't have a great deal of stories about my connection with Al, but I remember I started writing for Contrast in '75. I went in to see Al, and I said, listen, I'd like to write a column. One of the things that one of the things that's missing is that there are a lot of our people who are not involved in the political life of the city and of the province and the country, for that matter. So I had this great notion of writing a column and as a kind of an instruction piece on the politics, what goes on at Queen's Park and so on. So that's how it all started. And he said, okay, why don't you do me a couple of columns and see what kind of direction you take, and we'll go from there. And that was it. I started writing the Queen's Park column then, and it continued during the duration. They left Lennox Street, they moved up here somewhere on Bathurst Street. I don't remember the address. And then,
1040.
that's right. And the interesting thing is that I don't know if there's anybody else who's done it, but I think I spanned all three owners. Because I worked through Jolly and Mr. Gooden. Of course, some of you might remember that we started a business at 28 Lennox subsequently. And interestingly enough, there were still a lot of things in the basement of that. A lot of little pictures that were stuck to beams and some old papers. And I don't know if they're still there. But that building is owned, of course, by the Burbish family. But the bottom line is, I think that I had an interest in the political life of what was going on, and trying to get encourage people to become more involved in that, what was going on. I think Bill Davis was premier at the time and all of that stuff, and people needed to know what was going on. So I hope that some of that went through. But a lot of that, thanks to Al for giving me that shot at it. I wrote for a time with Pride. So I still have a few of the columns I actually cut out of the paper that I wrote back then. In fact, I'm actually in the process of putting them together in some sort of chronological order. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with them, but I thought it might be a good idea to take a look at some of what I wrote about back then, and take a look at what's happening now, and see, what's changed and what hasn't. Not much has, actually.
Not much has.
But that's some of my recollection of the time, and again, I say I owe a great deal to Mr. Hamilton, and it was actually quite inspirational that we had set up the business back there in that same building, because at that time also, I mean, if it were possible, I actually considered petitioning the city and something to sort of actually have Lennox Street changed to Hamilton Avenue or something like that, but we never got through to that, or preserving that building as a historical building. But the building is still there, and so that's something that we could probably even consider doing. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Murbish, the young son, might consider it. I don't know. It's worth a try. Anyway, thanks.
So we're going to leave that to Patrick to pursue. The renaming of the street. I'm serious. Don't drop that. Okay, let's do whatever it is. Street, building. Why not rename it Hamilton Avenue? Okay, who's next? Fan Pat, were you putting your hand up? You want to? Oh, okay. Come on up, sir. We're gonna.
Hello everybody, my name's Ricky Atkinson. I penned a book primarily about my former gang, the Dirty Tricks gang, that operated in this city for a number of years, but I mentioned Al Hamilton in the book because he had impacted me at a certain time. In 1971 or 72, and I can't remember exactly the date, but it can't be past June 21st, 1972, for that I know. But anyways, I was at I was hanging with Warren Hart at the time. And Warren Hart used to introduce me to people as his right-arm man. Primarily I was his bodyguard then. And it was after the Rosie Douglas era. Rosie Douglas was separating and pulling himself away from Warren Hart at the time for reasons unknown to me then, but I know now. And I was young and impressionable, so I adhered myself to Warren Hart under the premise of being in the Black Panther Party. And the guys I were hanging with now, we were trained by Warren Hart in various aspects of police surveillance and military techniques, because he was good at that stuff, he knew his stuff. But anyways, I was at his apartment in 666 Spadina Avenue, and a phone call came in, and I was there to sell him, not sell him, but give him some guns that we had liberated from a factory somewhere in Toronto, I won't say where, under the pretense that those guns were going to the Black Panther Party in Detroit, where we had a connection to, and I had been there several times. But anyways, a phone call come in, so he says, okay guys, we got to roll and go get the war wagon. So we had a station wagon that had a false bottom that kept our larger weapons in it. All of us were packing weapons at the time. So we shot down to 28 Lenox Avenue. So this would be my first meeting with Al Hamilton. So we walk into Contrast, and he was agitated, but he wasn't afraid, and that's what impacts me to this day, because apparently the Western Guard, the white supremacist organization, had phoned Contrast and said they were going to kill him. So I don't know who was around then that remembers that episode, but that got us there with him. So anyways, I walked in to Contrast magazine and was introduced to Al by Warren Hart, who said, this is my right arm, my bodyguard. So I was just a young guy, I was only 16, 17 at the time. So Al looked at me, he looked at me in the face and he goes, he looks kind of young. And Warren Hart says, don't underestimate this guy. He's all that I'll ever say he's going to be. So I just said, you know, I was a man of few words then, so I put my coat, I had a long maxi coat. And I had a 30 caliber M1 strapped to my side. He just looked at me and he goes, I want to shake your hand. So I shook his hand, and because of my association with Warren Hart, of course I ended up in prison. Everybody you gotta tell who Warren Hart was. Warren Hart was an agent provocateur hired by Warren Ullman for the Trudeau government to infiltrate black radical organizations. But what Warren Hart did at the time was not infiltrate them, he created them. And then he criminalized those black radical organizations, ratted them out to the government so he can get paychecks from the government and make the Canadian government look good in attacking black radicals within the world structure at the time. So anyways, I'm in prison and I started an organization called BIFA. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. So yeah, I started BIFA in 1976 because they had a lot of racial tension within the prison systems, and we came up with an idea that let's start an organization that was inclusive and not a segregationist organization. They're the acronym Black Inmates and Friends. So we started that organization, and it alleviated the tension in the institution, which was primarily Collins Bay, which was the most violent institution in the Ontario region at the time. Anyways, I wrote a letter to, I was a secretary of that group, and wrote a letter to Al asking him for some books or newspapers. I didn't expect anything to come. But in, I think, 2 weeks, it wasn't long, a week or 2 weeks, we get called up by the administration. They said, this came from Contrast. And it was a box of Contrast newspapers, dozens of them. Books, dozen of them, which we really appreciated. And I thought, what a good man that was. Because when we called on him, we needed him, he responded. And he responded instantly. He didn't wait. We didn't have to write several letters. It was just a single letter that I wrote him, and that box of books coming, which gave us some credibility to the inmate population, that we could reach out to people on the street and get materials and get things, and we dished them out. We created a library, and I noticed that white inmates were reading the Contrast newspapers. And they were also involved with the social issues at the time, primarily in the black community, because they were reading it in the newspapers like everyone, the Buddy Evans stuff and all the other stuff that we know about now. So I'd like to say that anyone that was involved in sending that box of books to me at the time, I'd like to thank you now. So I didn't have the chance to thank you. So that's my memory of Hamilton, and he impacted me this way. This is how he impacted me, and that's why I put him in my book. Because when I met people in those days, I was heavily armed, and I was fearless. And my intent was to go against the man at all costs, to protect the black community from anything. In other words, a phone call was made to the Black Students Union on George Street, and we responded to that instantly. I don't know who could remember me being there, but we were there, heavily armed again. Another time, Third World Bookstore's windows were smashed. And we were there within seconds. We heard the Western Guard of the KKK had attacked Mr. Johnson, Third World Bookstores, and we responded to that in seconds. And again, we were heavily armed when we did so. So my life was on the line, but I didn't consider it a problem at the time, being young and impressionable. Someone mentioned Hampton in Chicago, someone mentioned other Black Panther types who were all young men getting shot by the police, and we thought that was our duty at the time to put ourselves in Front Street for the cause. So I did. But what impacted me most about Al Hamilton, to get back to that, was his demeanor. Apparently he got a phone call from a racist organization similar to Ku Klux Klan, and when I got there I assumed he would be afraid. That's why he called us. When I walked into the room, he wasn't afraid. He was agitated, he was mad, but he wasn't afraid. And him not being afraid made me less afraid, because I had this thing on me, and it's a really powerful weapon, a 30 caliber M1 carbine. It does things that guns don't do. So he looked at me and he said to me, he says, "Young man, would you like to take your coat off and relax?" And I just went, well, no, and he understood. But his calmness made me calm. So I knew that I was in good hands and that this thing wasn't going to blow up and carry on to something I couldn't handle. And then after a few minutes we left, and I went back to Congress several times to meet him, and he was always polite, and just to get newspapers and stuff. And I was in the Don jail after that with, if you remember, Edwin Hogan, Ohio Black Panther, Harold Barnes, radical at the time. So those are the guys, and they would sit with me and discuss with me the stuff they were writing to Contrast magazine to make it relevant to the Toronto market at the time. Anyway,
Edwin B. Hogan. That's it. You can't have that because that belongs to my man.
But I'm going to get a photocopy of this somehow.
Edwin B.
So I'll give you my email, and you can just email it to me.
All right. Great story. Now, okay. So, yeah, go on upstairs. And then Jojo, you're gonna come up after, and you're gonna project us forward as to what we need to do, maybe with September coming up, Al's birthday. All right. So, thank you. Great.
All right. I never really worked for Contrast. I came to Toronto with Al being known as Uncle Al since I was born. So I got to drop off the newspapers at all the subway stops, and the wires cutting into your hands, and the subway letting you go through it, and all that. And sometimes I was renting the apartment that was next to where the press was, and sometimes he'd still be up. I'd come in with a woman less attractive at 3 in the morning. He would just laugh. But the stories, though, the majority of the stories that I know about Al Hamilton were way before Contrast was even a thought in his eyes. My mother tells me that he started out dealing cards in all the gambling joints in Winnipeg. And he used to always have Pond's cold cream that he would keep his hands soft as possible, so the cards would slide quicker. So being 14, 15 years old, then he fell in with a criminal element. Which is not unnatural. And throughout the years, one thing I found very sad about this, a year ago somebody asked me if I would write something for Black History Month about somebody that I admired, and I thought, okay, well, I'd like to write something about Al Hamilton, and I looked on the internet, and there was like nothing. There was no pictures to go back to. There was like nothing to go from. So, and I was thinking, this man really had turned his life around much like Malcolm X had. Like, he referred to the time he spent in Kingston as going to school. So it doesn't surprise me when you say that he sent you books and newspapers. Because he understood. Because he'd been in that school. So he had shared his homework with you, And there was one story of when he was in Vancouver, and he was trying to make his way back to Winnipeg, and he was hustling, and one of the porters, because that's what everybody in Winnipeg, you're either a hustler or you're a porter. And one of the porters let him on the train for free, but lectured him all the way from Vancouver to Winnipeg. Oh, man. and say, you don't have any scruples, that's your problem. So Al was like a young man, he's thinking, well shit, I better, you know, see if I can get some scruples when I get off this train, and where can I get some, and how much will they cost, and, you know, and there's all kinds of great stories about, like, when he first came to Toronto, and he had this huge Lincoln, and he had a huge bulldog with him, and a couple of women in the back seat. And he would park his car on the sidewalk in front of the Brown Derby. He referred to the Brown Derby as his office. And he said he'd come out 3 in the morning, there'd be a ticket on the windshield, and he said he'd just tear it up and throw it away. He didn't give a shit about it, wasn't paying it, because well, he had no concern for anything like that. But it was funny, I was in Winnipeg last week, and I had always heard the story about how he was in a hotel room with a woman that wasn't his regular. And she had shot through the door and shot Al in the knee, so in case you ever wondered why he had that bit of a gimpy walk, that was because, I know I shouldn't tell these stories, but what the hell. If I don't tell them, nobody will ever get to hear them, right? I had brought my mother's name. I would have brought my mother down, but she would have named names, okay? So I thought it was just better off leaving her there. But when you say the stories of how he had death threats and he wasn't scared, well, that's because like when he was in Kingston, they were doing a talent show. And you're supposed to invite all your relatives, and he had people coming in from Boston to see him and see this talent show. Well, there were 3 guys that wanted to do they decided they were going to do an act in blackface. Okay? So Al told him, said, look, I got relatives coming in, you're not going to embarrass me, you're not going to embarrass my family, you're not going to do this blackface. So these 3 guys said, well, you know, how are you going to stop us? And there was this other guy, I found out later on, was connected with the Irish mob. He stood up with Al and he said, well, I've been listening to you guys talk, and I don't think it's very nice for you to embarrass a man when his family's traveling all this way to come and see him. So now there's 2 of us if you don't like it. So needless to say, the 3 guys wound up having to do something else. They didn't do it in blackface. So the fact that, you know, that a phone call did not intimidate him, okay, when you're in prison and you've got 3 guys and you stand your ground. So a phone call wasn't going to intimidate him. When you opened up your coat, it wasn't the first time he's seen one. And if you're lucky, he didn't open his desk and go, well, you know, like, you know. You know, because, I mean, you know, a woman shot him, so, you know, he's not worried about, you know, about any sheets coming, you know. A woman, you know, so, and he told wonderful stories about when Joe Louis would come to town and then how he'd have to shut down operations for a bit. Oh, another thing, he opened up a house of ill repute in London, which was head of the KKK in Canada back at that time. So if you can open up a whorehouse where the KKK is calling the shots, you can open up a newspaper and not be worried about anybody else, you know, because he hit him right at the root of it all there, you know. So I'm sure he really wouldn't want me telling some of these stories, but then he shouldn't have told me some of them himself. So anyway, you know, and when I first came to town, he tried to help me out in the business. He introduced me to Gino down at the Royal York, so I could get in and see Tina Turner and Millie Jackson for free, and then introduced me to Daniel Calderon, who allowed me to appear on one of his Canadian Black Music Awards, and then I did my act, and then the next week Al had to print all these hate letters that people sent in because of me, because of the language I used, and you know, and then he allowed my rebuttal, and so that was fair, and then he gave me the station wagon to go and drop off his papers again. So, but it's, like I said, it's sad that when I was looking for information, looking for something to start my story with, I couldn't find anything. And as for forgetting Al, that's not going to happen, because every day I wake up and I go downstairs, and the furniture he had in his living room is in my living room now. And the only protection I have in my house is a cane that he brought back from Sudan. And when you pull the handle of the cane, there's a long-ass sword on it. So, no, you know, nothing under the coat like you had, but I got something rusty from Sudan for somebody. if they come to my house. And that's it. Thank you very much.
That's great. That's great. That's great. So, Mr. Gooden, when you come here, sir, for a minute or two, say a few words. What was it like taking over the paper of a legend?
Close to the mic.
Yes. I was sitting in my office one day, and I got a call. Okay, Gooden, there is a newspaper in the black community, and it's about to disappear. And I'd like you to do something about it. Well, what can I do? Well, it's very good, you know who you are. You own a chain of nursing homes and so on and so on. Hey, I said, okay, let me walk over. I went over and looked at him, but gee, I really know nothing about the newspaper. Come on, goodness, and listen, we look after it. All you have to do is to get it good. I think Otis was here at the time. Yes, Godfrey. Tom Godfrey, yeah. Tom Godfrey's son. Yes. Tom Godfrey. Tom Godfrey, yes. So, okay, I called Jolly, told him I was interested. Well, what do you want? He says, well, I want 25,000. 25,000 for a newspaper? What's wrong with you? Okay, so wrote him the check for the 25, and then we started the newspaper. I had no experience in publishing. I had to depend on others. And I thought that we probably did a good job. Business-wise, was doing very, very well. For a while, we had it up to 48 pages with advertising. But then, started to lose money. Advertising went down. So my wife said to me one day, when are you going to quit? I said, quit? No, I can't do that. So I ran it for another year, threw another $50,000, $60,000 in, and finally, boy oh boy, I got the message. Had to close it down. And I went away, did business in Puerto Rico. Never, just could never get the paper. When I look at this on One Star and so on, I keep on remembering the newspaper. Got here, 202, went back at it again. Ran it for about another year and a half. My wife took a look at me again and said, hey, listen, back at it again. What we just put we just had to close it.
When did you shut it down permanently? What year?
205. 205.
Well, 05 is when they said contrast is back. How long did it come back for? One edition,
About a
A
year and a half.
year and a half? Okay.
Yes.
So 06, I guess.
Yes. At this point,
you still own the rights?
Yes.
So if you want to restart Contrast, this is the guy you should pay $25,000 and it's yours.
There are a lot of people here I like to talk because I am in the process of bringing Contrast back.
Seriously?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes, seriously.
Wow.
Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Okay, so see Mr. Gooden right after.
Yes, I need to speak to a lot of people. Huh?
The checkbooks.
He says he's thinking of relaunching the paper.
Online.
Online to begin.
Online start.
Online start. I also run a consulting firm, Global Can International, and I'm about to hit some big clients. so I look to them for some advertising.
Yes.
And I really hope we can do it again. I think so. You know, the lack of experience. You know, when Arnold was there, making sure that his paper would go. I was at Credit Valley playing golf. I stopped on the night and hey, Lord, will we be going out? You know, and that was you know, wasn't very good. I should have paid. But then I was running the chain of nursing homes, and that was my bread and butter focus, you know, and.
So it's going to be nice on the price.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Let's thank Mr. Good. Jojo, come on up here. That's where we go from this. To the TV, Jojo Chincho. Still remember the piece Jojo did on tires, getting your tires all ready for winter, and he took out a penny and he says, "Look at this tire. You put the penny in. If the penny doesn't disappear, get new tires."
Yeah, I did a lot of crazy things in city.
Yeah.
What can you say about Al? I was at Contrast in 1972. I had just finished an internship at the Trane Star, and Al called me and says, "I need somebody to kind of improve the look of this paper, and you know, raise it up a bit." So I took it over, and I remember the first thing I did was basically introduce a lot of pictures of the community, people in the community, and also kind of raise the level of writing. And I remember Arnold Auguste, who's now a big shot publisher, writing religious columns for me. And Otis kept bringing all these black militant stuff, you know, music, you know. But it was fun. We had a lot of fun. Just my lasting memory of Al, maybe a lot of you don't know this, is when he was at Wellesley Hospital. He was dying. 2 days before he died, I showed up. Actually, I was there a little earlier, and he says, "Good to see you, Joe. Says, you're doing all right. I'm real proud of you. You know, I watch you on TV all the time." I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I'm dying, man." So, because I got cancer. And a couple of days before he died, he went and got a haircut. He had his, you know, cleaned up. And when I showed up, he says, "So I'm ready." I said, "Ready for what?" He said, "I'm ready to go." I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I told you I'm dying." And so I went and got Greg, his son, because Greg and I are really good friends. And Greg hadn't seen his dad for a while, so I went and told Greg, I said, "Look here, you better go check out Al because, you know, he may not be around too long." So he wouldn't go. But Al has some nieces, Nona from BC. She's passed on now. She rests in peace. And Linda Brown, who works at McKenzie Insurance Company up with 401 and Young. And Nona called me up and says, "Where is Greg?" He said, "Can you do what you can to, you know, just bring him to the hospital?" So eventually I was able to convince Greg to come to the hospital. And I took him to the room, talked to his dad, and we all kind of left and stood outside in the hallway. And Greg came out. He was kind of a little angry. And he started crying, and we left, and he never went back. But a couple of days after that, Al passed away. So Linda, Nona, and I had to go to the funeral home and arrange to have him cremated. And then we set up the memorial over at Gerard Street. I got Liberty Silver to come down and sing the Black National Anthem. And we went to his apartment. And for years I had all his stuff, his records, his newspapers, his birth certificate, his passport, a big picture of him, because he and I were in Thailand a few years after his father died, and we were on this boat. We went fishing on this boat on the ocean. We hired this guy, paid him $40, and took us fishing. And for some reason Al's name came up. So I kind of told him what happened in his last days, and Greg started crying again. You know, I said, it's too late now. You know, and but he explained to me the relationship between him and his dad, and I understood. But he loved his father. Somehow the two of them couldn't see eye to eye. It was kind of sad to see that. Right? You know, it's an intimate knowledge that I have. But Al was a wonderful man. He just, you know, he's just like Kenny said, he turned his life around in a big, big, big way. His life could be a great example to a lot of these young people who think they're so bad, you know, because, I mean, some of these clowns running around this city causing a lot of trouble can be better than Rick Atkinson. You know, I mean, he's the original bad boy right there. I mean, we've known each other since the 60s. Kenny Cleveland, you know, Paramount, you know, there's a history to this place. You know, Booge, you know. So anyway, but right now we're in the process of trying to raise some money to establish a scholarship, journalism scholarship at Centennial College for Al. We're hoping that we can have a dinner or some kind of fundraising dinner or something. We're still not settled on the date yet, but we're gonna do something. Maybe hopefully on his birthday, September 9th, we can announce the fact that we're gonna have this scholarship in his name because he deserves it. I mean, it's a shame that somebody who's made a great contribution to journalism, our history, but we are like that. I'm talking about as a black community. We just don't celebrate our own, we don't honor our own. I don't know why, you know, it's just, I mean, those of you who know my work, I've done a lot of work on black history over the years because I take an interest, I take pride in it as an African. And I figure the Africans here, they're very important people. They've done a lot of things here and I don't understand why nobody talks about it. And I've just taken it upon myself to, you know, do it. And I had free reign to do it on city, and I always did it. And the more I did it, the more information I found out about us across, you know, across Canada. You know, like I'm in Vancouver and I found out John Dees, the guy that actually canned the first salmon, is a black man. There's a whole island named after him. How many of you know that?
Not
you don't.
too many. That's right.
You know.
We have one black mayor.
Amber Valley, beautiful place that brings a lot of really innovative, you know, black people. We don't know nothing about it. And I'm from coast to coast, you know, and so there's, I mean, we have a wealth of information that we can share with our children, but somehow we have this tendency to be, I don't know, I think we're ashamed of who we are, you know. Phyllis talked about the hair, and there's something not quite right with us. But it's funny, you know, those of us around, we've really improved a lot. We're coming around. We still haven't come around enough. We've still got a long way to go. And we got to keep on pushing. And people like Al and them were the torchbearers, you know, that says, listen, it's all right to be black. It's all right, like, it's all right to be who we are. And stood proud. And that's very important. And I think that's Al's legacy. You know, even though he never paid me, you know. It's all right. You know? And I told him that before he died. He said, man, Joe, I didn't have any money, man. But he was a great friend. I love him. He was more like an older brother, you know, and I'm glad I was part of, towards the end, I was a big part of, you know, his life. And made sure that everything was done right. And now I'm going to make sure that it's not forgotten. Thank you.
All right, man. All right. Sure.
So you're the guy who decided you'd make Al's funeral on Carabao on a Saturday. I remember. I said, "How am I going to?" That's a hard choice, man. That's a hard choice. So I'm a Libra, so I like to have my cake and have it too. So I fixed up my Carabana outfit into a nice little bag, got my suit together, and I went down to the funeral, did my respects, and then I went into the, I was up in Girard, right, deep up into Girard in the east and in Scarborough area. And next thing, I put my suit folded up nicely, put it in my bag, and I was ready for Carabana. But at the time, I was at York University, and my hero at the time was ex-jailbird named Norman Otis Richmond. Otis used to call me. I talked to Otis more combined than all of the women I've ever had. On the long phone calls, 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff. So of course I wanted to write for Contrast, and I was writing for Excalibur newspaper for York University at the time, and I went down and I said to Al, you know, can I write for the paper? And I started to write. And after a little while I said, well look, I need some money. So I remember I asked for an appointment, Mr. Hamilton. I went into him, nice big black desk he had there. Briefcases were in at the time. He had a nice briefcase, top of the line, opened up towards him. His jacket was on the chair, and there was a Ray-Ban or a nice, expensive sunglasses on the thing. And I pleaded my case to Al, because I thought I was a little bit of a rapper at the time, you know, sweet talking rap. When Al Hamilton finished with me, I paid him. That dude could talk his ass off, man. By the time he explained his expenses, how he got to do stuff, what he's got to do, I was like, I'm so ashamed, man. I'm so fucking ashamed.
I just want to show the people. Linda Carter in the house. Linda Carter. That's Linda Carter was one of the people used to type and do a lot of work with Al, right? Come up. Can you come up, please? Oh, Jarek, no. After Linda, Jarek can speak. I don't have much to say. I just want to show. We got lots to say. No, but let Linda. Hey, Linda Carter, won't you you on Isaac Hayes albums, right?
I mean, Linda is one of the models that they were pushing to get in the catalog, right? Great to see you, girl.
This woman, you talk about a black image in Canadian culture. This was it. Young and pretty. She had a picture all over Shepherd's Drug Mart. Yes, she did.
Oh, I missed that part.
And a more black history. Her mother was the first black colored person at Simpson's. Eaton's.
At Eaton's, that's right.
The very first black woman hired on the desk.
That's right, on the counter.
Yeah.
Wow, I was not expecting to come up here to talk. Contrast. Jennifer, what was contrast to us? If I'm going to be here, Jennifer Monteith's got to be up here. Come on. If I'm going to be up here, Jenny's got to be up here. Because we did contrast together. And I'm so glad that she's still here. Hello, my dear. I know, we won't hug too much. We'll lose our hair. Right. What was contrast? Contrast was the hub of activities. Contrast was the soul of the black community. Contrast was where you could always go to talk, to see people go through there. Contrast was always something that you could rely on. It was always there. And Al, well, he was always there for a good sermon or two, right? Oh, yes, a few, at least a few sermons. Uncle Al was quite a character. He always kept us around. There was you, me, Liz, and Babsy. Right, remember Babsy Grange Walker? Yes,
right.
We're really going back in the days now, that's right. Huh?
Hamlin Grange knows.
I would think, yes, I would think Hamlin would know him quite well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So contrast was always a reflection of our consciousness, actually. He always told our stories, he always bigged us up.
Bigged us up.
Bigged us up, that's his, yeah. Yeah,
oh, wow. It's been so overwhelming this evening hearing all these great stories and remembering my story is I was Miss Contrast at Caravana for a couple of years. Yeah, and I got my first centerfold in contrast. Jennifer, always a winner. And Al was my first mentor and the most important mentor of all. And he was instrumental in having me being the first black model in the Eaton's catalog.
And you know, it's very funny. I finally just was talking about my father. I finally finished a documentary on him.
I saw it. It was fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. But, you know, we forget our heroes. We forget we have to tell our stories. I'm going into the schools now and talking to the kids. And when I tell them when I went to school, I was the only black person in the building, in the borough. We were the only black family. And now I'm trying to tell the kids, I said, you know what? Everybody's a star. Tell your story. Where did your family come from? What did your grandfather do? We all have our stories. And if we don't tell them, that's why it took me so long. You know how long it took me to tell Dad's stories. And he was the hardest person to interview. He wouldn't let me tell his story. But we have to tell our stories.
Happy to be here tonight to tell
that's the thing. I'm so glad that you mentioned Al, because there's so many heroes. And Al is one of the greatest ones, and he wrote them all down. So thank you for doing that.
So Otis, what do you want us to do, man? Come on up.
Let Drew move.
I just want to show him this. I don't need a mic. I can.
Before you start losing people, what do you want us to do so that this doesn't just end here tonight? That's the key.
I want us to come together and work with whoever is going to put something together on the September the 9th. Al Hamilton's birthday is coming September the 9th. He was born September the 9th, 1928. And I think that we should organize with the people. We should form some sort of coalition, and we should take do something bigger and better. All the people that were influenced by Al Hamilton, we need to get him. First of all, one of the enduring things that we can do is get his stuff on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is wide open to tell the story of Al Hamilton, to tell the story of Black Canada, to tell the story to the world. And I think we need to come together with other people. It's got to be more people than us. People with. We need Jean Augustine. She's doing something at a something tonight. We need Denham Jolly. I spoke to him. He's here in his heart. He told me he couldn't come because there's some issues with Denham. What do you think, Royce?
I'm ready to go. We just need people on the organizing committee to help organize and plan this event in September, and people who can spread the word so that you can get it out. There are 10, 100 times the number of people that are here that have been impacted by Al and would love to celebrate his life. So let's do that. Let's get the word out and get all those folks together.
Let me say that this man here,
I was going to ask you, did you piggyback off the Harry Jerome Awards anyway, or anything like that?
Harry Jerome, I should say that Al Hamilton was one of the founders of the Harry Jerome Awards, and I don't know why come they don't do anything for him. Wow. I don't know.
I wouldn't advise it. Piggyback off him?
No, I wouldn't advise it.
No?
No.
Well, people know something that we don't know, so I don't want to even go into that. But Pat, this was a guy. We were at Ita Sadhu's house and in Miguel's house, around Christmas time, and Judy Brooks was agitated. Judy Brooks was saying, "You guys talk, do something." And this man really pushed it on us. Myself and JoJo went around a couple of years ago, and fish weren't biting. It's like we went to a certain organization. I'm mellow, so I'm not going to name names. A certain black organization of journalists, and their position was don't know, don't care, don't take me there. They were militantly ignorant about Al Hamilton. They didn't want to know nothing about Al Hamilton. But it was Judy Brooks is really responsible for us standing up here today. She was the one that said, you guys talk, just do it. So we pull it off.
Thanks, Otis. I think if perhaps tonight people who are interested left their names and email address, phone numbers for us to follow up on, we can make a move from there. So I encourage someone to pass a bit of paper around.
Business card okay? Business card okay?
Yeah, business card's okay. So we can be in touch and we can grow from here. With this, we can see that the scholarship fund gets taken care of, or the dinner or whatever. And that's what I have to say. Thanks to everyone for coming and supporting the idea. And now the idea is taken off. Yeah?
Can we have the name? Can we get the names and email of everyone here that's interested, please? Could we do that? And Hamlin?
Yeah. And I think Al's godson is...
Yeah. Al's god...
Go ahead, Ham. Go. Hamlin, go ahead, and then we'll come to you, sir.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. Yeah. I'm really surprised that that when Otis approached the CABJ, excuse me, talking about the Canadian Association of Black Journalists, that there were some people there who didn't know what was going on, because when I co-founded the CABJ with a number of other journalists, we started 2 scholarships. One was named after Al Hamilton, the other one was named after Mary Ann Chad. And we presented those scholarships, and we were able to work with Centennial College. They're the ones who started that. So the funds that are currently being put into the scholarship that Gene Augustine and Rick and those folks are involved with, that's the leftover money that was in that fund from when we had the scholarship fund through Centennial College. So I'm really surprised that there were folks that you went to and spoke to at the CABJ were totally ignorant about this. That concerns me, and it speaks to what we've all been talking around here, is that we lose our history because we don't talk about it. Okay, and is there anything that I can do to move this thing forward? I'll do what I can. As I think Al Hamilton, love him or hate him, okay, this man was an influence and an important person in this community. I should never let that go. Never let that
go. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this is a pay what you can. There are certain expenses that the Trane has, and we would like to, so if you can dig deep, whatever, you can contribute, and we will, we wanted to bring up a young man, this is Al Hamilton's godson, Shane.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to thank y'all very much for filling in a ton of blanks that I've had in my life. I don't have any fathers left in my life, right? All my grandfathers, my papa and my godfather, they all passed away years and years ago. So I'm just completely overwhelmed with all the stories that you're able to share and really give me a sense of who this man was that I've known my whole life. His name has been in my mind the whole time. Bought me my first bike. It was like this purple Roadrunner with the hard tires that I rode till it was naughty and busted. And you know, all I remember about him is he smoked a pipe and had a real shiny head. And you know, his apartment was really cool, but I was only there a couple times. And you know, heard that, and this guy really bugs me out because I got to see his house and just, you know, get a feel for who my godfather was, because I inherit nothing, right? But I have the memory of this man in name only, and like you say, it's not online. So I'm a CEO. I own a boat detailing company, Spike on the Water, and I donate a couple $1,000s a year, every year, to different yachting organizations, junior sailing programs. But I'm putting all my focus this year on my godfather. So y'all stay in contact with me. I'm moving some pretty big deeds out on the water, and I want to see his story grow, because what you've showed me tonight is just some really powerful stuff about like a super duper guy, right?
Thank you, us.
Yeah, so just thank you all. I look forward to maintaining relationships with every single one of you. I ain't shy. I'll talk to anybody anytime about anything at all. So, you know, approach me and we'll have the conversation if we can make something happen. You know, in the community, for the culture, for my godfather, whatever the reason is. I like to write. I ain't no journalist like most of y'all around here, but I maintain a blog and I'm happy to, you know, plug in whatever web banners you have, whatever, you know, connections, links you want to put on. I'm in, fully, 100%, 150%. Thank you very much.
That's what we need, young people. That's what we need, young people.
And we have people here, Molly, Melinda Francis is here. She's taping and documenting the situation. We also have Daniel Libby. This will be on YouTube. You guys will be, whether you knew it or not, you will be on YouTube. So no one has anything to worry about except Clifton. No, I think everyone was very, very disciplined. And like I said, once again, this is a pay what you can. I think Jaribu has something, and I wanted after Jaribu, I wanted JoJo to close this thing out because he's the most handsome person in here.
Oh, come on now.
Come on.
What do you want? You can't have it.
No.
You want some?
I want. Look, I don't have nothing to say, brother.
Go ahead, come on.
He gave me a chance. He gave me a chance when I was about 25 years old. I had just come back from Afghanistan, Pakistan. He gave me a chance when I was about 25 or 26 years old. I had just came back from Afghanistan and Pakistan. I did a lot of photography over there. And I had some brethren from the States, from Chicago. We came up here and we put on a show. And that's when I first met Al. And he's always been how do I say him? He's a smooth cat. I just like the way he dressed and talked. But he gave me a chance, that's all I'm saying. And I thank him for that.
Yeah, Al Hamilton was clean enough to cook in greens, and the way he used to speak, they called him schoolboy. He said when he was in the United States, he had such nice diction, they referred to him as schoolboy. But I think JoJo Chinto is a few minutes older than I am, and I wanted to let him close the show because this is a man who keeps me going. He keeps me on my toes. He's always criticizing me about this and about that. He'll let me know if something is wrong. And I would like to let our brother JoJo have the final words.
Give him a round of applause. He did a great job. I can't criticize it tonight, but maybe tomorrow. This is fantastic. Royson, thank you so much. This is wonderful. Now, don't forget to put your names down. We're going to be in touch with you because I'm on the committee that's trying to put together a scholarship. So please, we're going to need your help, need your support. Put the word out there. You know, we'll take the money from anybody. You know, so we can add more to what you have. I was there when Otis was trying to talk about Al Hamilton at the CAPJ. I took him there, and they said, well, can you tell your friend to basically cut it out? It was very difficult for me, but I had to stop him, you know. But I said, look, they don't know where he is, and they don't really care, you know. So it was, I was a witness. He's standing right beside me. But why, you know, like you said, they don't know. They don't know the story. They have no idea what influence that man had in my life. They idolize me. I idolize him. They should be paying respect to him, not me. But they didn't know, you know. So that's sad. We got to correct that. And it's wonderful to have a young man like Shane committing to kind of keep this dream alive. And we need more young men like him because we're getting on. When I knew you didn't have any gray hair. Look at me now. You know, we're moving on. I tell you what, we got to keep it going. We can't let it go. We can't stop because Al,
Dr. Daniel Hill, Wilson Head. I've never seen anything done on Dr. Wilson Head. Brilliant man. Great spokesman for black culture. You know, I've never heard a tribute to him. Dr. Daniel Hill, Dan Hill's father, you know, started the Ontario Human Rights Commission. No tribute, nothing. And they were, Eric, that's right, Al Makery, North York. Why? These are our heroes. If we don't talk about them, who's going to talk about them? You know, we're going to talk about them. They were here one time, they made a huge contribution. And we stand on their shoulders to stand here. So why don't we know about it? We got to make the effort, please. You know, if you cannot be there, at least put your money out. $1, 50 cents, $20, $100, we'll take it. September 9th, hopefully we can announce that we have enough money to, you know, put out a real good scholarship. I'm going to share a little story with you. A few years ago, Vanilla Bruce, who's a producer for CTV's morning show, asked me, he says, can you please donate some money to CABJ, to our World Scholarship to young students, because, just to encourage them. So I gave her a check for $2,000. I said, okay, here, don't tell them where you got the money, but there's $2,000 for young students. You know somebody lost that check? Nobody knows what happened to the check. I still got the receipt. That's kind of sad. It was a money, it was a draft. I got it. Somebody lost it. And CABJ was so embarrassed to tell me that they had lost the money. $2,000, money I don't have, I borrowed it. You know, just to encourage young students. Because it's easy to stand out here and talk about, you know, black power and black this and black that. Put your money where your mouth is. You got to walk the talk. A lot of us talk a lot of shit. You got to walk the talk. We don't do it. You know, young lady comes out, just trying to do something, says, Joe, please, can you help? Here's $2,000. A month later, the money's missing. The plan was to give at least $500 each to good students who want to pursue journalism. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. But please, let's try and make a change. Thank you all for coming. Don't put your names down. I want to get in touch with you, please. Email addresses, phone numbers, put your name. Frank, thank you so much. And please put in some money over there so poor man can run this race. Trane is great to us, and I hope we'll come back again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.